We have extras in the back if you need one.
Oh, no, it's just trying to pull it up on my laptop.
So I didn't realize that this used to be Mount Arafat.
Hold it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Okay, we are live.
Okay. Well, we have a quorum, barely, but we are ready to start. Let's have roll call. Will,
Will Roddybush here.
Chris,
Chris Mowen here.
John Sampen here. We're hoping Christina Tracy will be here in a moment or two. If we could have a discussion about the minutes and maybe somebody to ask for approval.
I like Chris's suggestion about property versus homes. You know,
Oh.
put that.
In our meeting minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we phrased it always in meetings, but in general, I think we should refer to them as properties. Always. It's a site doesn't even have a
Yeah,
building
yeah.
someday, so.
It's a kind of all inclusive.
Mhm.
So does something need fixed and where? Because I'd have to
No,
note
No, it
that.
was, she had already got it.
I think she
It's
had
already there. Oh, okay.
suggested that.
All right,
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
So I'll motion to approve
Okay.
March meeting minutes.
Second,
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we need to have a secretary for today. Do I have anybody that wants to nominate themselves?
I feel like you do a lot of talking, so I'm not sure I'm the best person.
Will, would you be
No.
willing to do it one more
I
time?
can do it.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay.
I'll get too lost.
They go to John, I think. Yeah.
Let's go back to Heather.
Yes, please.
All right, our next meeting date, as I see it, will be May 24th, Tuesday, the 24th, 4 o'clock. Does that work? And we'll hope that you still change your mind. Will is threatening to leave us, but if you
Now,
have some other thoughts, pass that on sometime in the next month or so. But that would be your last meeting, I
Yes.
believe. Is that correct, Heather?
Sorry, yes, May would be the last meeting.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. We'll hope that doesn't happen. We appreciated your advice and help.
yeah, I appreciate being appreciated.
We have a lot of things to go over today, and I'm just finding my correct agenda. HPC friends and advisors, we are continuing to build on those names, and we appreciate our friends that are here today. We've been talking a little bit about some projects that perhaps we can draw help from some of you in identifying projects for example, some signage projects down the road, like the Heinz plant, maybe doing some research and helping us develop a sign that would go and be posted. Heather had some information about Fremont and a place that makes these signs. We haven't done much more than just talk about that, but that's something down the road that we'd like to do in the near future. So we'll be continuing to talk about that. I don't know if that's a subject want to discuss right now?
I did look on some websites. There's a lot of sites that make signs and they're probably maybe $200 to $1,000. I mean, they're not terribly expensive, but part of it too is thinking about the monument or what it might even be on. Is it on a rock? Or is it on a post?
Right.
I mean, or is it on the building? If we do one, say like where the army used to be and it's a CVS, how is the presentation of the plaque needs to be thought about.
Right.
Well, and we already have one on Main
Christina.
Street that, as a
The-
precedent that, right, it's on a
The
post.
post, yeah. That's nice. That looks nice.
So for maybe just even cohesiveness, we want to match something similar to that.
So we have to get the name of this company so we can do some research. Yeah, I know you have a little bit of detail on that, right?
Yeah, I have a few places actually. Again, I think it's back to the type. There's different designs, more of a walking kiosk versus an actual plaque. I did look at Parks and Recreation, talk to them. They do have 3 kiosks at City Park that they got a grant for. So I have pictures of those and I got an estimated cost just to give us an idea.
Wow, good.
I think there's just a lot of research. You have to think about graffiti. Of course, like you said, the locations and how those would be mounted, historic site versus district versus landmark. I just think
Right.
there's kind of I could see it in phases, not to get too in depth here, but I think they are a significant cost. I mean, you could be around 1,500 for one sign. And if you want 30 of them, for example, that's why I think you'd have to really phase that and then look at grants. I think there's a lot of opportunities for grants. I was just thinking the other day, the Bowling Green Community Foundation has a wonderful grant program. The issue is the city can't apply for that. The Historic Preservation Commission can't apply for it, but you have a nonprofit partner apply for it. And I think we have a lot of opportunities with a lot of different partners. So who could help us sponsor that? So again, I'm not trying to get in the weeds here, but I do think there's a lot of opportunity. But I do think it needs some significant consideration on where to start. Do you want to start downtown? Because I think that's probably the biggest impact at this point, is the downtown and the rich history. And then, maybe from there, there's a phase 2 of some of those historic sites we've talked about before. Maybe phase 3 is looking at, the university in general. Maybe they could have 1 or 2 that highlight University Hall and other buildings. And maybe that could be married to our discussion of the MOUs. So again, just I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Great. Thanks for checking on that, Heather. So one of our strategies, we're talking about signage. Christina Tracy has just arrived. Thank you. And one of our possible strategies as we gradually work into the concept of our districts, historic districts, we're not quite ready to jump in and start doing inventory yet without a bigger team of helpers. But we would like to let people know we're here and proceeding with some signs around town is, I think, a good way to temporarily go. The university, we'll get to that in a minute. I can give you a little bit of update on where University Hall is, as well as the other buildings. Okay, so send me your ideas if you have any, and maybe we can develop a list of sites that we feel are significant for Bowling Green. Any other comments on that?
I have a quick comment, and Heather knows, I'm just thinking about the wayfinding signs that we were talking about with Small Nation. So the city had engaged a corporation called Small Nation, who probably are familiar with Bell Fountain.
Is it Bell Fountain or Fontaine?
I think it's tomato, whatever
Okay,
you provide, whatever you like. But, I was just thinking about, is there a way that we could think about if we were going to incorporate something like that, the wayfinding, into something like this as well, or at least from aesthetically, they should
Mhm.
be very similar in nature. But because I know you've done some digging on Heather, like what, the cost could possibly be, but also the wayfinding signs were interesting because I believe they were funded by the local businesses, right? The businesses paid for a certain percentage of the sign, or an annual, I think it was an annual fee. I'm not sure. I don't totally remember. But if we were thinking creatively and outside the box, obviously partnering with a nonprofit maybe and doing the grant route, but then also maybe, upkeep and annual maintenance, who would be interested in something like that, or who would really benefit from having those signs, maybe thinking about it from that angle too. Bring it out there.
Good. So would we approach the, what do we have now? What do we call it? It's not Better Business, but what's the organization for
The
downtown?
CIS.
Their Small Nation is the organization.
This is Small Nation in Bellefontaine.
Yes.
But what do we have in Bowling Green that maybe we could approach with that similar idea?
I'm not sure. Like, I'm thinking about the program would have to be maybe, a little more built out and grander in nature to pitch it to somebody, rather than just having like the signs and like a walking type thing. Like, I'm thinking, how could we build out if we really wanted to, and, highlight certain buildings and certain residential buildings here in town, are those buildings going to benefit from something, or is there some, like, is there a program behind it, so to speak? Like and so, unfortunately I wasn't able to connect with the Historic Gateway before this meeting, just with spring breaks and such, folks were traveling but their program obviously generates funding, right? So it's but I'm sure that some of those buildings benefit from, right, the tours and that sort of a thing. It's a larger program. But I was just thinking, like, could we do something like that, right? Some kind of like effort behind it that would pay for the signs. Thinking.
Yeah.
Would the Visit BG organization,
I was just gonna suggest
is that who we would
Yeah.
talk with?
Yeah, I feel like that's where there would be a good start.
That's
the-
Kat Patterson? Is
I
that-
know her
Yeah.
pretty,
Yeah.
I've met with her a couple of times. I feel like something like that would be like a good start.
Uh-huh.
Talk about possibilities there.
Maybe we could invite her to come and talk with us.
You haven't talked to the city yet either, besides me. So I think,
Right.
like Christina was saying, I think a bigger picture wise first, and then,
Right.
next step, hey, we have this idea and talk to the city administration.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think coming up with an idea behind a program first, and then maybe talking with Kat would be a step. But I'm just thinking, I mean, certainly a way to go would be getting a grant and putting a sign up in front of a historical building, or residential or not. But, just thinking about a way to get maybe a little more engagement going.
Good. Okay. Ideas? We can
I'll have to
we
think
have-
on it.
Have to brainstorm that one. But I think finding extra, not just money, but people that would be behind the project will add a lot of potential power behind what we're trying to do. Okay, great. So May, Preservation Month.
Yay.
We're almost there. We have a new handout for the scavenger hunt. Or is it new? Is it the same?
It's the latest,
It's
I guess
the,
you'd
latest
say.
version.
this is the one that will be going out to the businesses and
Excellent.
such. So Heather, do we have a way to get these printed and distribute?
Yes, we already are working on that.
Okay.
I actually have copies right now if Christina wants to take them to Juniper.
Oh,
And if
great.
not, I can deliver them.
No,
I was going to deliver them
absolutely.
to downtown Bowling Green. We have them here in our office at this building, and then it'll be on the website. Let's see, Hallie is putting out the press release on Friday. It'll go on our webpage also Friday. We will have weekly social media posts to introduce the month on Sunday. And then the educational post will be on Wednesdays, which each week on Wednesday will be the district or building highlight. So I don't want to say too much because I want it
Yeah,
to be
we
a
want-
surprise to the community,
Mhm.
but so we have the history written behind those districts or buildings, and one will be released each month. And then I gave you a copy of the press release. It doesn't
Yeah,
include the
that's really
buildings, though.
good.
You got that built, the other
Very
one.
good.
But then we also are introducing on our webpage the nomination form for the public. So as part of that, we'll do the first month in May, and then after that, we'll start reviewing the nominations once a month to highlight a historic structure or site. So
Great.
that's all good to go.
Thank you for putting that together,
Yeah.
Heather. It
No
looks, it
problem.
looks great. Really
Do-
nice.
Sorry. When you say it's on social media, is that like the city's Facebook page?
Facebook, yes. And
Okay.
I do believe we have Twitter too, and I assume that's part of it, but I don't follow Twitter, so I'm
Yeah,
not
I don't
really sure. But I know Facebook at minimum for
Okay.
sure. Yep.
Will it also be in the city e-news?
Yes, the city
Okay,
e-news. Mhm.
Great.
Yep. And then they'll be at the library too,
Mhm.
the handout. People can return them to all these locations too.
Yep.
So if they do want to be entered in the drawing for the gift card at Juniper.
And
So
when is the drawing?
we will have them all due at the end of the month.
Okay.
And then we'll do it whatever that next business day is, or within a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a little tough because it's Memorial Day weekend at the end of the month. So we'll have
Yeah.
to see what.
And I'll do the gift card. And then whenever you stop in, Heather, you can grab that.
Okay,
Just
perfect.
ask for, yeah.
Great.
So should we do the drawing at our next meeting? Or we do,
Well, we're asking for these to be returned by May 31st.
okay, so they have a few more days.
Yeah, so we'll want to do that,
Okay.
Timely manner, I would say.
Okay.
Mhm.
beginning
we'll-
of June.
Post the answers after.
Yeah.
That last day or whenever the next business day is.
Good. Yeah, this looks great. Nice color
Yeah.
presentation. Thank you for making those copies for us. That's terrific.
Oh, I know Hallie reading it. She said, I'm just excited reading all this information about
Yeah.
Bowling Green. So I feel like, it'll be
Very
a
good.
good positive communication for the public and to be really proud of Bowling Green and the rich history.
You all get to see this soon, but this is maybe you sort of can see from there, but it's a nice little 3-page package with a lot of information. And we release this like as of today.
May 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Technically, Hallie's putting it out Friday,
Oh,
which is
Friday.
April 30th.
April
So
30th.
kind of kicking off the month.
Okay. Excellent. Do we have any news about the walking tour from Wood County Library? Anybody?
Yeah, so the Wood County Library is doing a Boomtown walking tour on June 11th. You can sign up on their website,
June 11th.
June 11th.
Not okay.
Right. And they also, I don't think it's up on their website yet, but they are planning another building history workshop in July. So as soon as I have that date, I can put that out there. But
Great.
And it's being advertised on the bottom of the scavenger hunt. Chris put it on there.
Mhm.
And we also have it in the press release. So,
Excellent.
and I do believe it's limited though.
it,
I think there's only
Right.
20 spots maybe, or
Oh,
yeah,
25. I don't remember. It's limited. So
so get in there.
well, yeah, I want to go on that tour. Is it a 1-hour tour? What, do we have a time? Maybe we can
I think it might be hour and a half, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
maybe we can get them to do two of them. Or 3,
I know.
at least one.
I attended one few years ago that was did a downtown walking tour. I think it was maybe an hour and a half.
Okay.
So
I'm sure I'll have plenty.
Good. So we talked about the press release. We will need a nomination form. You haven't.
Sorry, I jumped ahead. We already have, well, it's
We
already
have the form?
built. It's going to be posted on the website on Friday along with the press release.
That is with.
So the press release will also kick off the web page,
Great.
the scavenger hunt and the nomination form. I'll send the link once I see it.
Good.
But it looks nice. Hallie designed it, so you can just enter it on our webpage. We did ask, I believe, for a picture and history behind the building. So
yeah,
I just can't remember the details. I should have printed it. I think I did, and I don't know. I have it with me.
excited to see what people submit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And we were trying to convince Will to do a little walking tour for the HPC, but he's not quite sure he wants to do that.
I don't
So-
think so. This is terracotta. I could point out the materials. She knows the styles right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, how are we doing? We'll move on to item number 5, local building district designations. City of Bowling Green Police Building and Needle Hall. Have we progressed past the planning commission yet?
Yes, so Planning Commission will be reviewing this. Let me get my calendar. Their next meeting is May 4th. Next Wednesday, they'll review it and then provide a recommendation to City Council. They could hold a public hearing, but when I wrote up the memo to Planning Commission, I recommended they not hold a public hearing because we already had or will have 2. And it just seemed like it was a lot of
Right.
probably unneeded public hearings. I hate to say it that way. It's always good to have public input, but just to best utilize their time also, because council will hold their public hearing. So you're looking at May 4th, and then it would get kicked to council with a recommendation. And then council meets the 1st and 3rd Monday. So they would probably get it on their agenda May 16th for their first reading of the actual ordinance for designation.
Okay.
Haven't heard a thing, so my assumption is so far, so good.
Nobody's
I think
complaining.
No
yet.
one's complained.
Yeah,
And
well, that's good. We like that.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. County Courthouse, no movement on that. I take it.
I have not heard anything.
Yeah. Okay. I know that process is moving slowly, but hopefully that will eventually come through.
Just a note on that. I don't know if you noticed that they were doing some significant work on the building a couple weeks ago. Huge crane. You could see 2 guys hanging from it. I thought that was an interesting job.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were doing quite a bit of work around the building, the tower. So they definitely maintained the building very well.
Update on University Hall, BGSU. I did receive back from the president our document, which they signed, but they left off what we thought is a kind of an important item. And I'm not exactly sure why that was. So I will tell you what that, I think it dealt with whether or not we as HPC could also advertise it as a historic building, as well as the university. And for whatever reason, perhaps the President Rogers or the attorney didn't think that was a good idea. I don't know, but I've written the president and President Rogers and asked him to maybe reconsider that, and we're awaiting that response. Again, things move slowly, but eventually we'll hear back. One way or the other, we're going to recognize University Hall, but we'd like to share in the celebration of the building with the university, and I don't know exactly why that item was not included. And you never heard anything, did you, Heather,
No.
as to that? So we're awaiting that response. Okay. And the planning for Boomtown, again, Heather and I had a discussion about what week and a half ago, and we're thinking that we want to wade in gradually as we start developing our historic districts, and perhaps concentrate on other things that will bring recognition to what we're trying to do historically. So we do need to be thinking forward with that, but I'm not sure we want to get into it too much today. Any thoughts at the moment? No. One of the big things, of course, will be inventorying many buildings as we start that project, and we may need help from all of our friends in making that happen.
I do want to note though, just like we have the police building in Needle Hall, anybody in Bowling Green can come to us with a nomination if someone says, hey, I own this building, I want it nominated as a local landmark, or that's something that we already have in place per our ordinance. So if someone wants to inventory their house and submit it, that's not.
We could start with your house.
Right. Just putting that out there if that's something that anyone in the community is interested in. But as John said, the four of us can't inventory every building in Bowling Green, so
Right.
it will be a slow process. I think also right now are focusing on some of the advantages, interacting with the community and discussing advantages of preservation will be key to getting those nominations rolling in.
Yeah. Good. I had forgot to mention, let me just do it at this point. We want to honor one of our longtime commissioners, Les Barber, and Heather has prepared a little certificate of appreciation for Les, which will be signed by the mayor. And so I'll just read that. Whereas Mr. Les Barber honorably and faithfully served the citizens of Bowling Green as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission from January 2019 till March 2022, and during that time consistently demonstrated thoughtful deliberation and careful study in matters pertaining to recognizing and celebrating our community's historic landmarks, as well as historic preservation. Les's hard work and dedication greatly contributed to the community betterment, earning the admiration and respect of his fellow citizens. And then it'll be signed by the mayor. And we do recognize, I certainly do, that Les was instrumental in helping us write the ordinance and pushing that through the city council. So we really appreciate his help. So this will be signed, and then we'll mail that out to Les sometime soon.
It's already in the mail technically and signed. So I just gave you a
Already
copy.
on its way.
Yeah.
She's on top of it.
Okay.
And the mayor's office wrote it. I can't take any credit. So.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. All right. Grant opportunities. We've talked about that a little bit already. Are there any?
So I know we talked about the CLG grant through the State Preservation Office. I think I would hope by our June meeting, we'll be able to vote on what we might use that, what we would like our grant application to include. That way we can start gathering the information that's needed, particularly if we have to, get quotes for things that might take some time. And it's due in February, but that's going to come quick. So does that seem like a reasonable timeline by June to have whether we want to use it for
At least get
signage or inventory or
into thinking about what to use it for.
yeah,
you know.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
I know we had hoped to really talk about that more during the summer, and Are you willing to help us write that?
So I've never written a grant before, but I'm happy to help and, I'm sure that,
Maybe we could work on that together.
yeah, we can all put our brains together, right?
And Heather will be our main resource as well.
Yeah,
there's-
I already looked at it. It's not difficult. Just
Yeah.
getting what you want to do, like
Right.
Chris was saying.
Yeah, I think just coming up with, I think the main thing is coming up with the exact designation that we want to use it for, and then
Right.
budgeting that and showcasing the sources and uses. But
Mhm.
I'm wondering if we have the ability to post something that says, hey, we are applying for this grant. If anyone in the community would like to volunteer their, professional services, if they are a grant writer, if they would help, maybe, I don't know, post something on our social media capabilities to put it out there. Who knows? Maybe we get some feedback. Maybe we don't, but.
I think we're all very capable though. It really,
Yeah.
Oh, is
Just-
it that
yeah.
small? Okay.
I mean, it's just like I said, a matter of exactly the project and really the budget.
Okay.
And part of the
Right.
issue of us doing it early is that the city has to do their budget by November,
Mhm.
actually into December for review. So we need to plan ahead for any matching funds
Right.
that may be necessary.
Yeah, the CLG grant is a 60/40, is that right? Or is it?
Yes, I believe so. You can use time and
Mhm.
kind of staff, but there's also some exceptions that a lot of it was diversity and inclusion. I think
Right.
there's some priorities that do not need a match. But again, it all depends on
Yeah.
what the
What we use it
commission wants
for.
to do.
Yeah.
Will the city automatically match that if we got the grant?
We would have to budget that. That's why I'm saying
Right,
if we
right.
need to do it
I was-
early. Mhm,
Okay.
To figure out what that match may need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not impossible. It's just, getting
Right.
some numbers on it for sure.
Maybe just making the decision right now. If we want to do it by June, when is it due?
The grant application's due in February.
Oh, February.
Yeah.
Okay. But okay. So what was the June?
I was just asking if in our June meeting, we could decide what we were gonna move
Gotcha.
forward with. That way,
Okay.
if we have to solicit for some professional services, that gives us time to put out that RFP and get all that back.
I mean, I guess just to throw it out there, I feel like from a business angle, like as an organization that's just getting up and running, I feel like, getting some engagement from the community first and really focusing on maybe the plaques or really getting,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And getting folks acclimated to this is a new initiative and we're really excited about it, getting some money behind it and doing something programmatic first
Yep.
before we diving into the more systematic.
But that,
Yeah.
that could be a
Business
good use of the grant, I would think. If you had that program thought out about the plaques and
Mhm.
Yep.
costs and kind of processes, because they probably want it pretty detailed as to how the money is going to be used. And then
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
like how much is it for X number of plaques?
Mhm.
Right. Exactly.
That might be a good one to focus on would be
Yeah.
versus
See,
say,
if we can decide in June, then we have a couple more months to make those exact decisions of how many signs and where are they located, and then get those numbers. That's
Well,
just
I
what,
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
If we're spending 1,500 hours of plaque, we'll have to be really strategic here. And I don't know
Yeah.
what kind of amount we might be able to ask for. Is there a limit? I'm sure the city would like us to have a limit of some sort. But probably what we should be doing is determining these sites that we think need to be recognized,
Mhm.
whether it's we start with 5 or 10, or we have, maybe we prioritize as we go along. But I think we should just be making a list of what we really feel like is significant in Bowling Green and should be remembered. We could start that list right now.
Well, and that's why, I mean, if we're all, maybe we don't have to wait for the June meeting to say we want to use the CLG, we want to apply for a CLG grant for signage. I didn't know if there were other programs that we wanted to consider.
At some point, it'd
But
probably be
that's-
like inventory, things like that. But I mean, it take a lot of thought as
Yeah,
to,
and this is a
Right.
yearly grant,
Yeah.
so, you know,
Right.
this would just be what we can use in the year, and then we can always apply for something else the following year.
something maybe
Yeah.
specific and simple to get it, just to get our feet wet by
Yeah.
doing it. And
I'd have to look into this application more to see what the,
Parameters are.
what the exact
Requirements.
funds are, what exact funds are available, but I'll look at that more. But if-
I know I
if we
emailed
wa-
it to you all before, but
Mhm.
I know we do a lot of email. So we all have emails, right? A lot of them.
Well, we already know that we're pushing for the police building in Needle Hall. So those would be, I think, at the top of our list.
Well, Needle Hall already has the plaque at
They
the
have something.
park. Mhm.
Mhm.
So we're covered on that one.
I mean, it's those kiosks. I don't have pictures with me, but it's,
Mhm.
if you take a walk out there, you'll see it. They're very interesting to read.
Yeah. University Hall, we had talked about, if and when that is approved, having a ribbon cutting ceremony with the president and the mayor. So we can make kind of a big deal about that. But when that happens, we should have a plaque that we can present. So I would think that would be near the top of our list of buildings. We've talked about Milliken
As well as the courthouse and jail, right? We would want to do the same
Courthouse,
as the university hall.
right? Some of the buildings downtown, and Claysell, perhaps. I mean, some of the historic building. Well, it's all historic, right?
Right.
Where do we stop?
50 years is the cutoff. Anything older than 50.
I think that's why, again, the planning is so critical because I think when someone thinks of a plaque, they think of it on the building. But like I said, you could call it a walking kiosk where, if you go to Perrysburg, they have them. And so they talk about different buildings and the history of that block. So I almost think you're
Right.
looking at kind of maybe one per block that
Mhm.
describes that block. And the name of the block is the Lincoln Block. And it was built in 1901. And this was the developer. And, here's some key stores and, that sort of thing. Because the courthouse, U-Haul already have plaques, but we could focus more on the kiosk, for lack of better terminology,
Yeah.
giving more of a broader history of that era when it was built and tie in, again, the event and how it was built and what's
Right.
unique about it. Just a little
Some
more
of the-
description than a plaque, I guess is what I'm trying
some
to
of
say.
the things they talk about on the walking tour
Right.
of the
Yep,
courthouse.
exactly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
So
scripted.
you're suggesting an additional kiosk that would be there at the courthouse.
I'm
right?
just saying, I think we were talking more about the kiosk than the actual plaques.
So more
Right.
like what's
Certain-
up in Perrysburg
Right.
downtown.
Yes, and more
Just
like
get
what
the
that city.
photos. It's like a
Exactly.
reading board. You can sit there and read about.
Right. Mhm.
Right. And that's what they have like at Needle Hall, that
Yes,
style of.
City
Yeah.
Park. Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep. I took pictures. I can send them to you all.
Yeah. I think you
Yeah.
sent him.
Did I? Okay.
Did you send him an email? Did I? I swear I saw this.
Um,
Okay.
It's always good to send them again, though.
Okay.
We have short memories.
Might add, it's not on the agenda, but about other grants like historic tax grants, federal. There's some information, if you do some searching near, there's very specific requirements. There are historic preservation tax incentives by the National Park Service. There's a 20% rehab tax credit and a 10% rehab tax credit.
Yeah, those are so those tax credit programs are for individuals who own buildings,
Yeah.
income producing buildings. So
Yeah.
that's not definitely something we want to promote as a commission, but not something that we could apply for to use for our specific commission use.
No,
but, yeah,
they're specific for building.
building rehab.
They're
Yeah.
for like development
Right.
Yeah.
specifically. So like developing of
Yeah.
mostly commercial.
Right.
But I think at some point, like even looking at those kinds of grants for the building owners and potential building owners that want to get into
Yeah.
rehabbing something.
Yeah.
And this I apologize if this is on our, I can't remember if it's in our next agenda item, but that is something, the historic tax credit program, the state and the federal program was something that we were talking about doing a workshop on for the community.
Yeah.
So.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so if all of our commission people could forward names of locations or buildings that we should include, and let's just make a list and we can start developing that. And also thinking in terms of what we just discussed, whether it should be a kiosk, whether it should be a plaque, and how we might best display that.
Well, and the two that Will mentioned, the Heinz, where the Heinz plant was, and then the Armory, since those are, those buildings are no longer here, a kiosk would be a great, then we can actually show what was there at one point, So maybe we're just strategic about which ones get plaques, which ones get kiosks.
I think it may take care of itself.
Yeah.
But
I watched the video that Chris recommended this afternoon by someone, 2011, they spoke on a TED Talk in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And she was just talking about historic preservation and how it's really community building,
Right. Yeah.
not just building. It was looking at, tying all these things together. So like with the storyboards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks for
like
sending that. That was good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and she went over a survey that was done that I thought was interesting. The survey found that they did it of different cities. Didn't they have 43,000 people respond?
Mm.
And that like safety didn't come to the top of the list being important. It was basically
Culture.
aesthetics,
Mhm.
culture, just what attracts you to community. Those were the top three. There were top three things, and it wasn't related to what you think it would be.
Yeah.
And it really went down to historic preservation and having pride, that unique location. And you just feel attachment to your community. And that's what brought people back there, where they actually live and work. So I thought that was interesting. It wasn't what you thought it would be. So I wanted to look up that survey.
Yeah. I think that was the one that was through the National Trust for Historic Preservation, maybe.
I don't remember.
I
but
have to
it
go
was-
back and re-listen to her.
Yeah.
I was 11 minutes, so
Yeah.
I could listen to it quickly
Yeah.
without
No, it was very
being too
short.
distracting.
That was
but
good.
Yeah.
One thing she said that stuck in my mind was she said historic preservation it's the soul of the community.
That I think was the name of the survey.
Okay.
It was soul something. It was
Soul of the
Okay.
community. I think that was
what
it.
it
Yeah.
was. Yeah. That was the survey. Yeah.
It was very
I
good.
like that line.
That was very
I thought
good.
That was good.
It's like a thread,
Yeah.
like a thread through the historic
Yeah.
preservation.
Yeah.
Also, this other article that you sent us, Chris, on this book, I think this was from you, or was this from Heather? The Economics of Historic Preservation, a Community Leader's Guide.
Yes. Did we ordered that book, didn't we? Well, there was a book we did order, but I can't
That's
remember.
the-
We
that
have
was
it on the
what it
to-do list. I don't know if we ordered it
Yeah.
yet.
But there's a lot of good information here too that I just browsed through it, but
Yeah.
it's very, very nice. And a lot of the same points, I think, are being made.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's what we
I
did
think-
before the ordinance. I think okay. Yes, we do have that book.
Some of the what both those touch on is that, we find there's a sense of place and it's so sort of inherent as we walk around that you don't really understand that what creates this place is our history, and that's what's tying it all together. And so making sure that's the part where having those conversations with the community, that part's a little bit intangible, but it's why we all like it here. So
The other part that she talked about too that really touched me was about being green,
right.
because that's kind of I sent you an email about my dissertation was on something I called environmental value engineering. It was something I created based on Howard Odum, he's passed away, but he was a famous ecologist. So it's all based on his emergy analysis. So you look at all the inputs that go into things. So I've always felt that about buildings. In other words, if you're tearing down a building to put up a new building, then to me, you need to count all that waste and all the
Mhm.
materials that went into the existing building you're taking down. And I thought that was pretty good where she talked about rehabbing and,
The greenest
The
building is
green.
the one that's already standing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Good.
We'll move on. Our number 7 item, public relations education projects. We may have talked about some of these already. Ohio Open Doors. Chris, did you have any?
Yeah. Well, so Ohio Open Doors, that's with the State Preservation Office, I think, Heritage Ohio. Heather sent out, she got a postcard that she sent out. So it's the second week in September throughout the state. I don't know if that's something that we wanted to push to have an open door here in BG, if we want to. I suggested maybe the Carter House because I know the library already has, a lot of information about it, and maybe they can just do an open door one of those days, September 9th through 18th. But I know that Saturday is Black Swamp. So there's a lot already, Saturday and Sunday. So it's like a lot already happening in Bowling Green. So maybe it's something that we just think on for next year.
If the Carter House is part of the library now, right?
Right.
It's owned by the library, so that would be Marnie.
Right.
If that were to happen, we could certainly make a contact with her, see if there's an interest in her doing that, opening it up. So with an open, is it just having a house open where you can walk through? Is that how you see it? Or is there a reception? Is there is this a party?
The way it's, do you have that here? Yeah. They want it to have, I think, be some sort of a little bit formal of an event. But there's not a lot of restriction from, the people putting it on. I think they're just really interested in getting people out looking at the historic properties in the state.
Mhm.
Um,
So it could just be a walkthrough visit,
right.
and no particular other event associated with it.
I mean, I think I guess maybe just because it's an open door, and I think of that, like an open house. It is a little more casual in terms of the flow, but I know like at the Old West End Festival, when they do house tours, they kind of have people throughout so that as you're walking through, there's somebody you can ask questions or they can tell you something interesting about that portion of the property. So that's just something to consider in those scenarios. But and that's why I mentioned the Carter House. It seems like they've done it. They know what works well there.
Public space versus a private house too,
right,
for something like this.
Maybe in the future we can expand it to other properties, but
some homeowners maybe would love to have people come from travel to come look at their house at some point.
Right.
Like Chris.
Yeah.
No.
I know. I'll give people a tour of my house, but it's going to take some sleuthing to find some details and things. And so that's why to get it ready by September, I think whoever is involved will have to have a good knowledge of the history already.
You mean of that building or
right.
Would you like me to reach out to Marnie and see if she would have any interest, or?
Sure. Yeah.
I can do that.
If they don't already, I don't know how far out the library plans their programs.
Okay.
So if they can fit it in and it matches up with this Ohio Open Doors, then that would be great.
Okay. One that I just thought of one too, be on the campus is the old school building.
Oh yeah, the old schoolhouse would be.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I will make contact with her and we'll see if there's any interest whatsoever. And if so, maybe she would find this interesting and would want to pursue that.
Mhm.
Obviously, we wouldn't have much control over of that building. It'll have to come through the library.
Right.
Okay. How to research your house workshop.
So I spoke with Marnie, and they already have a workshop planned for July. How to research your. Let me get their exact verbiage. The website's site loading. I'll have to find the exact date, but yeah. So by our next meeting, I'll have the exact date for that. How to research your
Okay.
house
Okay.
workshop. So she'll walk through. Marnie does this workshop, and she will walk through all the resources the library has, both online and in their, in their history department for how to find, old maps, who lived in your house, or and a lot of the same. I think they gear it toward homes, but a lot of the same information can be used to look up commercial buildings. So any of the buildings downtown, look at who.
Obituaries, I think, since you mentioned that, like looked at.
And
things.
then old city directories
Yeah.
and all that sort of,
Mhm.
all
Was
those
good.
cool resources to dig into.
Good. Coffee with a preservationist. Chris, that's you again.
Yeah.
That was your idea.
I was trying to think of in ways to, do engagement with the community. When I lived in a little town in Delaware, we had at our farmers market, there was someone who had one of those, the doctor is in Lucy style tables but he was just I'm an architect, ask me any questions. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be kind of neat if we just sat ourselves at, somewhere once a month or maybe once a quarter or whatever, and
Or
said
at the farmer's market.
right. And just said, come ask me questions. What is preservation?
Ideas, or
What do
have
you-
ideas. You get a
Right,
good place to
or-
share ideas.
So I was just throwing it out there as maybe something we can do every so often.
Doctors in.
I'll sit anywhere on a Saturday morning if I've got some coffee.
Yeah,
So
that sounds good.
that's why I thought coffee with a preservationist.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Excellent. Could we, let's see.
I don't know when the farmer's market starts.
Usually it's mid-May.
I was
Yeah,
just
that's
going
what
to say, I
thought.
think it's Memorial Day-ish, something around there.
Wednesdays, right?
Wednesdays in
Wednesday
May, starting in
afternoon.
May.
Yeah.
I can hardly make it
Right.
here in time to usually get down there before the
Right.
farmers are out, but
We could look. We need you there, though.
you need me there.
You got to take off work. Okay, that's. We could also hook it up with researching your house workshop. We could have coffee before or after the Marnie's event. We can. I think we can brainstorm that some more. We've got a couple of months to consider that if we want to do it in the middle of the summer. But it's a good idea. Take a hike, walking tours. We're kind of. Did you have some more things? I know that was sort of from your research with Cleveland.
No, I know. And you know what? We weren't able to connect just because of spring breaks, and not mine, but hers. But so, we've been messaging back and forth. And I think, honestly, I do believe that, there is a program that we can do that might be unique, whether it's, the walking, the take a hike is set up, right? Where it's, in partnership with maybe the high school or the university, theatrical department, or they're doing some sort of, But I think what, you know, and I'm going to continue to talk with her, but I think what we probably need to do, and maybe an education for me personally would be, you know, when I read this, you know, this was just like such a cool, but I didn't know any of this, right? I didn't know that we were called the Crystal City, or that the college used to be called the Normal College.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, like I feel like we need to find some of the quirks and cool things about Bowling Green
Mhm.
and build the program.
Did you know? Yeah.
that way.
Did you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
I like that.
exactly what I'm talking about.
I
I
think
feel
that's
like no
what you
matter
did.
what I ended up digging up with
Yeah.
Cleveland, I feel like knowing what is unique and different about BG will help us build whatever this program will be. You know, it's not going to be a copy of the Take a Hike. It's not going to be an exact, you know, just kind of walking tour. Like, what is it exactly? You know, I love one of the books that I really love is called For the Love of Cities. And, you know, in that book, they describe this young boy who, you know, created the like cast iron or like little stone mice all over the city. And it was a treasure hunt. And so
Yeah.
all the local businesses had like the maps, and, you know, became this really charming, right, way to capture some of the cool, unique places around that city. And I feel like I think we can be creative about it. I think we just have to start with, what are those things? I don't know
Mhm.
them, right? I know Campus Poly Eyes because I went to college here,
Yeah.
right? And so I know what, you know, Black Swamp Festival, which is, you know, I know what I know about it only because I'm a college, you know, graduate, and then also a now resident. But I feel like we need to know what those things are.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, how do we find them?
Probably just talking
lot
to
of-
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if we hosted something like you know, like a little event or something, like tell us what's unique about Bowling Green. I don't know how
Yeah,
you do that.
right.
Like, what are you?
Especially people that have been here generations,
Right.
that have the family history and know
Mhm.
the stories
Yeah.
from back in the early 1900s. And as I was fascinated when I found out, like, Clark Gable was a
Mhm.
regular, I think, you know,
Oh.
at the Milliken,
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
you know, and some others
Yeah.
came for the pheasant hunting.
What
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Wood County is known for its pheasants.
So I feel like we
Um,
need to figure out what those things are
Yeah.
and start understanding them, and then build something around it.
So maybe a meeting with individuals that just talk one-on-one with someone that's been around. The one
I
of the
would be-
faculty at BG I was talked to, we just have lunch and things, and he started talking about all the grocery stores that used to exist here, all the corner markets.
Right.
So I thought that would be interesting, because I asked him to put a list together,
Yeah.
because I thought that would be an interesting kind of
Yeah.
layer, would be to identify where there used to be stores, like the one over on Grove,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I was shocked to find, you know, the building that Juniper is in, the specific space that Juniper is in was a department store when it opened.
Mhm.
And it remained a department store until Panera moved in 1999. I mean, that's over
Yeah,
like
I
100.
did
I mean,
too.
like, that's an incredible
Yeah.
amount of time for one place to be a department store. I mean, I just was kind of shocked by that when I learned that, you know. So figure-
Floyd Kraft would be a good one.
Mhm.
Oh,
He would be good to sit down and talk to.
he definitely would. I'm wondering, and I'm wondering if we could host something. Maybe Juniper could host it, right? Like a call to, you know, the historians of BG, right? Come and tell your stories. Come and
Mhm.
tell, you know what, and we just have a you know, community forum where people come and have a beer or a coffee and talk about the city and,
Mhm.
you know, what they know and their stories. I feel like that might be a good place to
Oh,
start.
that would be neat.
We could, I would be happy to promote that,
Mhm.
you know, on Juniper's social media. And I'm just trying to
I like
think.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
We
This-
would need someone to be the scribe to to write this all down, or we can record it, of course, but.
Right. Well, I was just going to say that
Yeah.
maybe that's even something we could video record to put up
Mhm.
on our website or
I-
refer to later when we need to.
You know, I feel like it would be really cool if we had a professional, like maybe like a student from the university.
Mhm.
They, you know, there are so many students that reach out to Juniper in an effort to capture or do videos for their program.
Right.
And they could do like a commercial, or they could turn, you know, whatever they capture into a commercial for HPC,
Yeah.
like people telling certain stories or something. I feel like that would be really cool to do that if we had.
Mhm.
And I mean, I know several of these students. I could reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in doing it, or, you know, I would offer them a free meal at Juniper to do it.
Okay, let's assign you that job. That would be great. Thanks for the idea, Christina.
You're welcome.
For the Take a Hike program, now I think if I remember correctly, you said it was people would walk around and there would be reenactors. Is that
Mhm.
right?
That's true. Yes.
That's obviously seeing that in person
Yeah.
is, you know, that's a really kind of helps take you back. When I was working with a Main Street Association, we were doing a virtual, you know, self-guided
Yeah.
walking tour. So when you got to the location, you'd click on the map and it would bring up information. But that could be another way to extend it beyond just that one time where there's reenactment, maybe that's videoed, so that we can add it to a virtual walking tour, you know, for
love
months
that.
later. And then maybe update it every time you do
Yeah.
a new tour. But just a way to kind of keep it going a little bit longer than the one event.
Mm-hmm. They do it every weekend. I mean, like, so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or they do it so many times a month, I think.
Wow,
Something like
okay.
that. The actors are all volunteers,
Mhm.
and they, you know, are all set up in their certain places, and there's a tour guide, and the guide, you know, takes them to the different, you know, I know.
Wow.
It's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's so popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll build to that eventually, right? It'll take some time, but
Right.
yeah.
All right, great. The tax credit item, do you want to say anything about that at this point?
Sure. I think I don't know when the best for timing wise, when it would be best to host a workshop on the historic preservation tax credits. The state rounds they're twice a year, so you kind of, you know, you have lots of opportunities. It's not like I think that doesn't really need to dictate when we host a workshop. I guess
We could just, now the Way Library, haven't you done some workshops there in Perrysburg?
I haven't. The How to Research Your House workshops that I did with Preserve Toledo. We did it at a couple different libraries, but not the one in Perrysburg.
I mean, we could just advertise that those are happening without doing an extra one. We could just say Bowling Green if you're interested.
Yes. So the house history workshops, the library already, they've got a good handle on it. I think we just promote what they've done. The historic tax credit, I don't know of a workshop that's happening right now.
Okay.
That's why I think an information session would be great for the community. I just don't know timing wise. Well,
Is there a tax credit that is residential?
No.
not through the state.
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
Those projects are pretty
So, well, let me rephrase that. There's nothing that's for single family residential.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those state awards, I mean, are competitive, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And those projects that get funded are like big projects.
Well, there's 3 different categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there's a small, medium, large.
Okay. I only hear about the large ones.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
that are like a real big,
Yeah.
multi-million dollar. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was 3 categories.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, the small, intermediate, and they don't call it big, but you know, whatever their phrasing
Bigger.
is. Yeah, bigger. Big. So I think that might be a good, I want to say it would be a good winter workshop
Yeah.
if as
Mhm.
long as, and maybe we can do it on Zoom. I get nervous that people won't want to be gathering in the winter, but that might be something we can do virtually.
Okay, let's keep that on our agenda, but not move forward on anything right now. We can hold off and think about that more.
I do think it's something too that, having Bowling Green economic development involved,
Yep.
because there really is a big picture of several incentives. So you can layer it
Yeah,
almost like a
right.
cake, you don't just
Exactly.
have those options. There's other options. So we can work with Katie Thompson, the director.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be good to have that, because then you could be the expert on this part. Katie could be an expert on this part, and somebody else could talk about another portion of options.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. Because the state tax credits in particular are tied to the development. They're wanting to see things get developed. So that's really that's what we're talking about, is using preservation to further development of our community.
Mhm.
So
We've talked about signage already, but let's, Heather, do you want to just mention about the Small Nations project and the Bellefontaine? I know you had
yeah.
said they were coming over and doing it. Or maybe you know more about this, Christina? No.
well, no, I think because we were, I think, talking about it earlier on with the wayfinding signs. Is
Right.
that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Plus, they are having historic tours by adding plaques to the buildings.
right.
And I think I said an article about that. And actually, that's where I got some information about plaques, who they order them from.
Mhm.
They have people on their team that are experts at installing them on historic buildings. So that was another tricky part. How are you going to install them if they are going to be in a
Mhm.
building?
So
You can really,
We would pay Small
potentially
Nation
hurt.
to do it.
Yeah, there you go. But if we are going the more interpretive signage, then that would be freestanding. But anyways, yeah, they really just look at economic development when it comes to historic preservation. They don't see, some people just see it as, an infringement of private property rights. They look at it as, there's huge benefits.
Right.
Again, as Christina said, looking at the uniqueness of your community and building on that and attracting
Right.
people
Right.
to their town. So, and again, how do you build on that? They have the first, or do they have the first and smallest concrete road? Remember they built
They
that
do.
I
arch?
think that's something.
Mhm.
They built an
Oh.
arch over it
Yeah.
that says that. And so
Yeah.
again, they're building really on that ability to attract people there,
Yeah.
read their plaque and get their picture with this
Mm.
concrete road. So, just again, building on the uniqueness of their community.
Yeah.
They also had, there's a funny story around the history of Bell Fountain with the pineapple. Do you remember that,
Oh,
Heather?
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's a funny story with the pineapple. I don't remember what the story is exactly, but the bottom line is that they use the pineapple all around town, and they have a couple of social media propped, moments set up for people to tag, Bell Fountain and take photos and at these cute little social media areas. And, the story behind the pineapple, right, is there. I feel like those are kind of those things where
We have to discover, like, what
That's
is
exactly
our
right.
pineapple?
Right. Well, maybe it's
Well,
a
that's the-
maybe it's a
tell us your
crystal.
stories.
Maybe it's a
Yeah.
crystal,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Mhm.
which I think is kind of cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's exactly what I think we need to find.
Yeah.
Mhm.
'Cause I think there's a lot of like manufacturing of his crystal.
Yes.
You get the
Mhm.
Heinz plant. Todd Wagner, who I talked to, the faculty, he said originally back in where the parking lots had, I think behind Panera Net, where Panera used to be, I think used to be a car manufacturer.
Oh,
He named it. So it is gone. I mean, so those kind of things might be even around the manufacturing and the potato chip
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Canes.
canes. I mean,
Mhm.
Yep. You remember that? Yeah. I do. I miss that. I miss that company.
Well, and Bell Fountain had built on the Wright brothers had built a plane there. And so they actually
Oh, wow.
added the pictures of the, of them and their plane to their
That's
hallway
where
of
they
one of their
fabricated
buildings.
it. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I think they actually flew it from there too. I mean, they had, again, a description of the history, but they built this building upon that theme of the Wright brothers and, come see this building. And this is where they built the plane. And so again, they built on that uniqueness that they had in their little town.
Well, I think we've talked about this for the last couple of years, doing a little field trip over to Bellefontaine. I think we need to do that. So maybe in the fall we can find a reasonably free Tuesday afternoon and make a trip over there. I think that would be great. Okay, well we are through our agenda amazingly. And I think unless there's other comments from anyone, we can go to the lobby visitation. Would you like to say a few words? Yeah. If you, yes, please, and just announce your name for anybody that might be watching.
Right. My name is Jeff Howes. I live at 438 North Prospect, and I've lived there for almost 35 years. I maybe should have told you this before, but one reason I'm here is that Mike asked me if I wanted to join this commission. I assume I'll be replacing Les, who lives down the street from me, as the Ward 1 representative. So unless the city council rejects my nomination, I will be joining you at your next meeting, I think. So,
all right. Thanks for introducing yourself.
Yeah, maybe I should have let you know beforehand. I was really fascinated to see this. I have to say, I'm retired from the university. I was on lots of committees, but I don't remember ever going to a committee and getting excited about what they're doing. So, this excited. I guess that's a privilege of retirement. My connection with historical things is just kind of a general interest. I've only lived here for 36 years, but so I'm not a townie, but I've always been fascinated by it. And just for example, one of the things I'm doing right now, Mike Siberson gave me a microfilm rather, with 6 months of a German language newspaper that was published in Bowling Green. Now, I taught German at the university, and I did some German American heritage courses, and I've worked with the Wood County Museum for 18 years now, doing their German American Day every year. So I've been over in the Center for Archival Collections and looked at their German language newspapers, but I never knew there was one that was published in Bowling Green. It was called the Post. And what I have is 6 months from 1889. And that's all I know right now. But it's the first 6 months. I have the first paper. So what I've been doing, there's a lot of stuff in there that you can find elsewhere, but I've been translating the local news, City and Surroundings, it's called, for Mike, for the Genealogical Society. But I already know I'm going to give it to my friends at the museum, and I'm going to show it to you because 1889 was a really happening time in Bowling Green. They were talking about planning and building the Hankey Building, which had an opera in it. That was the City Opera House.
94.
And it was the oil boom was really ramping up. So he tells every week of how many wells have been drilled in the area and how many tanks the Standard Oil Company. He gets really angry at the Standard Oil Company for buying everything up.
Raising prices.
And he's also trying to get German speaking subscribers for his newspaper. He tells those stories a lot, going over to Pemberville, which is a good German town, going from pub to pub to get his subscribers. Anyway, it's a really fascinating thing. So I'm really interested in everything you've talked about today, and I'm looking forward to joining you to work on some of these things.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Great. Ruth?
I am Rose Drain. I live at 228 East Court Street. So I have just a couple of questions. I need more education if I'm going to be of ultimate use to the HPC. So I'm wondering if when you share resources with each other, you could maybe include other interested parties. Because I would read them. And the only thing I know is the joy of living in an old house. But I think probably as you get started with some projects that are going to use community members, the more educated I am, the better. And then I have a question for Heather. The zoning changes that are being, that the city is undergoing, what stage are those in, and do those have any impact on historic properties?
Yeah, we're updating the zoning code. I guess we haven't really talked about that much here because we have kept the language that was adopted by council with the historic overlay zoning exactly the same.
Oh.
So it's all still there verbatim.
Mhm.
Yep. So it's the same process. Really, most of it is in chapter 158, which is not part of the zoning code. Chapter 150 is the zoning code. And so again, it lists the historic overlay zone, and that mention in the early stages of the zoning code is still there. So a good question. Yeah, no changes. I definitely did not want to touch that. I'll be honest. We just kept it the same. It was very new and it hadn't even really been utilized yet. So it's written the same.
And I don't remember, are those in the final stages?
No, not at all. We actually
Oh.
haven't even released the rest of it yet. We're still polishing it off. We do have a webpage dedicated to it, the zoning code update page, which shows the sections that have been released right now to the public. And then we're still working on the remaining sections, which we hope to have out probably by the end of May, if not sooner. And we hope to have it adopted by the end of the year. But it's such a big project and new to all of us that, there'll be more public interaction, of course, and other presentation and public hearings. So hopefully by the end of the year, but we'll see.
And then the other thing, I was specifically interested in the TED Talk that Will mentioned. So I might be able to find it on my own, but if somebody can send me the link
Sure.
to that would be great. So it sounds, so many of the things you talked about were exciting to me today too, and sound like a lot of fun. And so thanks.
Rose, so
being here.
if we would identify a particular site that needs some research, would you be willing to undertake that for us?
When I looked at the inventories that were done of the police department and of Needle Hall, I realized that I have no knowledge. I'm a baby when it comes to understanding
Yeah, well,
materials.
you're
and
not the only one.
architectural terms.
You don't have to feel
So if I'd be willing to do training, if there's training available, like maybe at the state, I would be happy to go to Columbus to.
And that's that workshop the library puts on every 6 months or so, that it's like how to research your property.
Mhm.
They have some good resources if you can.
And
And I think she's doing it virtually and in I could be wrong. It might be in person in July, but that's a good resource to.
yeah, well, so I'm planning to go to the libraries. with,
Yeah.
Information so I can sign up for that. And if they're taking signups already. But
Big-
if there's anything, we like to travel. We just spent the weekend in Cleveland. So if anybody hears of anything going around the state, we're both retired, so we can actually go to things. Like if you really wished you could go to something and you can't go, let us know and
You
we'll.
be our representative.
Yes,
All
yeah,
right.
and we'll pay the registration fee.
All right.
A big portion of those inventories too is the historic. I'm looking up the historic information. I mean, it's sort of like the last part then is going around and looking at what the materials are and that and taking some photos. But a lot of it was even just finding the basic information about the history of the building.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the library will focus more on that,
Yeah.
the history side. The architectural detailing, we've talked about putting together some sort of guidebook that helps people figure some of that out.
But
We didn't talk about that today, but
I could see the inventories being done by multiple people, and
Yeah.
put together. You have somebody
Oh, sure.
specializing in architecture, somebody is good at looking at the history,
history.
maybe a good photographer.
Yep.
It could be a little like a team
yeah.
doing an inventory.
Another thing I wondered about is there any sort of historic property owners, even if it's not formal, association? How do people who
Not
own
that I know of.
properties communicate with each other?
At this point, I don't know that they do. And that's what we're
Then maybe
hoping
we
to
should-
Things
work
are
on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
some magazines. Now, what's within
I think that's sort of, this friends group maybe could be, once that gets built out, could be a good resource where people can say, hey, I own a house here and I was just talking to John the other day, I need a painter and,
Right.
who's
Right.
painted your house? And
Yes, I need to
mhm.
know who, and you can't share the information because it's not within your,
Well, we can't say this is the best
Right.
builder in town.
Right.
I need to know.
We might be
who
able to make a
refinishes
list. Can we
hardwood
make a
floors,
list?
And so I want to talk to other homeowners.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
To see what their experiences have been. So was there a mailing that was done to Boomtown property owners?
Not
Not by
recently.
you,
Not with us.
but there
Oh,
was recently.
Well,
by-
we had a mailing, let's see, when we were talking about the CLG, I think
Right.
we
Yeah, that was-
distributed a few informational leaflets, but nothing too fancy.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Rose.
All right. Any other final business? Anybody want to offer an adjournment?
make a motion that we adjourn?